Hello, everyone, and welcome again to Off the Beaten Track. This is an experiment I am doing, recording for 10 days straight. This is an experiment or a challenge that was set out by the Economic Ninja to all of us over the age of 50 to do 10 straight days of recordings telling our stories and to see what comes of that. So that is what I'm doing. And I want to go into why I feel that I am off the beaten track. And to do that, I don't want to go straight into all the different ways that I am thinking outside the status quo, outside of all the parameters that have been given by maybe things like the corporate media or the educational institutions, because I believe, I'm thinking of someone who I think is great, who is Brett Weinstein. He is the founder with his wife of the Dark Horse podcast. And I had heard him in an interview before saying something that I really wish I could quote accurately, but what I can remember from the quote that I'd like to recall is that he said, "I have come to be something like a despicable person and to believe unforgivable things." And there's more to it. But I feel that way. I feel that if I were to say my perspective of our current world, that it would be almost like unforgivable of the things that I think. So today, being a Friday, we're going into the weekend. I just want to stay away from some really big, heavy topics like, the economy, our government, health, and much, much more. And just go into like, okay, how did I get here? How did I get off the beaten track? I want to go back and try to recall how I felt as a child. And the reason for doing this, and I don't know if this is why the Economic Ninja suggested doing this, but I was trying to think why do this? And I believe it's because it helps me to get to know myself and where I come from. And then for you listening, I think that it helps us to understand that we're all the same. We all have the same struggles, and that with each of our stories, like to find like for you to find yourself in my story and for me to find myself in your story. We're all connected, I believe. We're all like the same. We all have the same kind of tenderness, tender spots, fears, and things like that. So that's why I'm just gonna go into, okay, early childhood. What can I remember? What I can recall from growing up, I grew up. My first decade of life was actually in the 70s, and then all my adolescent years in the 80s, the cool 80s with all the neon and stuff like that, and Madonna and Michael Jackson. That was my world. And but when I think of myself as a child, try to remember my earliest memories. Not many of them. The household that I grew up in was turbulent. There was a lot of fighting, but I was the youngest of 4 children. I had 2 older sisters and an older brother. It went sister, brother, sister, and then me. They were all 2 years apart. I was the 4 year at the tail end. And I recall adoring my sisters, thinking they were so beautiful and so smart, and I wanted to be like them, sort of. I just admired them. I don't think I actually really did want to be like them. I admired them and wanted to sort of do what they did in my own way. I remember my brother was in some ways very sweet and in some ways scary. And he was a hockey player, and he was kind of a tough guy. And so that was the sequence of siblings. And then, yes, my parents immigrated from South America. I remember the food. I remember the food I grew up on. My mother would make arroz con pollo. It was like a delicious rice and chicken dish with saffron in it. I loved it. It was cooked with all the chicken fat. And she would make chili con carne, which is just chili with meat. And I loved that. We would have tacos with that chili con carne, and it would have some rice and refried beans and lettuce and onions and on soft tortillas. And I always remember going to other people's houses and their tacos looked much different than ours. She would make paella from her, she had some Spanish in her line. So did my dad. And she would make, milanesa. That was with mashed potatoes. That's like a flat, it's actually made from, what do you call it? It's beef, but it's, it's the calves. It's kind of not a really nice way to produce meat. I can't think of the type of meat that's called. But anyhow, it was breaded and pan fried. And she would make tortilla, which was like an egg and potato dish that I didn't really care for that much. She would make soups. She would make chicken and rice soup with lemon. And so the food was pretty good. I remember the food being good. And I remember going to other people's houses and their food was, more what would have been considered American style in those days, like the end of the 70s, the 80s. But loving tuna casserole. So if anyone grew up eating tuna casserole, I'd love to know, because I freaking thought that was delicious. And I tried to tell my mom about it, and I don't recall if she ever tried to make it. It was kind of a weird thing probably for her to hear, like making a dish out of canned tuna. Anyhow, I remember the food. I remember traveling as a child. I remember going to Jamaica, and that was still the 70s. I was quite little, but I think that's the first thing I can remember, and that our tour guide's name was Mello. So I know that we were in Jamaica before they had a lot of upheaval, going into that upheaval. And going to Argentina, I remember I was 5 years old and meeting my cousins and relatives and things like that. So I just wanted to put down a little bit of just my early childhood years, and I think I would like to work up to trying to figure out how I got so off the beaten track and started thinking differently than I don't know, a lot of the people that I'm surrounded by in my immediate environment, like my neighbors, and I love them all. But I definitely feel like my thought process is different, and so I want to open up my world to more people who have those kinds of thoughts, and just learn about more commonalities I might have with other people. But anyway, I'm not there yet. Not there to divulging these unforgivable thoughts of mine that I have. But I would love to hear from you, love to hear any of your thoughts on what I've presented so far, and I will be back again tomorrow. Have a great day.